All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We have another great happy hour set up for you guys. We have Odell Brewing Company and the Odell Wine Project with us tonight to showcase their wine. I know that we did a tasting a while ago that talked you through all of their can wines, but they now have bottles out, as most of you guys saw. So we're going to be able to talk about that. So sorry for my dog. I'm sorry. Anyway, so thank you for being here. And just like usual, I'll go over a few things. If you feel comfortable, turn on your cameras. It's always easier to talk to faces than it is to black screens, but no pressure. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll be able to answer them through there. And thank you so much to Davidson's for being such a great community partner to the Highlands Ranch Community Association. And thank you so much to Odell's for being with us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Katie, and she will get us started and get us tasting some wine.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for joining. This is the third one that we've done kind of through this, let's call it a season, but we've done some with beer, and then we did one, like Daniela mentioned, with all of our cans, and really excited to really be able to talk more to our bottle program that's coming out. So I've been the rep for Odell Brewing for the last few years, and Miguel has just recently taken over, and he's joining us today. So this is kind of his like first go at the virtual thing, which is exciting. So I'm going to pass it over to him in just a moment to let him kind of give a little backstory of the brewery, and then segue into why we're here and why beer people are talking about wine. But I'm excited to be with you guys tonight. And just as a reminder, we're going to talk about some of the cans and some of the bottles, but we're going to finish with one of cocktails that we have created. And so if you're drinking one of the can wines, just leave a little bit left for your cocktail. Don't get too excited over this hour. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Miguel and let him talk about all things Odell.
Thank you so much, Katie. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Miguel. I've been working with Odell Brewing for just over 4 years now. And like Katie said, I just recently transitioned to the Denver sales rep. And so I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with Davidson's. So if you see me in the store, feel free to stop me, say hi, ask me any questions that you would like. I always enjoy a good conversation. So for those of you who are not familiar with Odell Brewing,
No.
one of the largest craft breweries in Colorado. And over the last 30 years, we've brewed many different delicious, tasty, award-winning beers. 90 Shilling is our flagship, and it's still a staple to this day. And in the early 2000s, we released Odell IPA, which to this day is one of my all-time favorite beers. Most recently, we released Sippin' Pretty, which is a fruited sour made with guava, acai, elderberry, and pink Himalayan sea salt. It's nice and refreshing, not too tart. It's a really good beer. So most recently, we decided to take that 30 years of experience and knowledge in the fermentation sciences, and we decided to broaden our portfolio. Most recently, at the beginning of 2020, we launched the Wine Project. It was a long time in the making. Travis joined us. He brought with him a wealth of experience and knowledge. Travis is our head winemaker. We currently offer 4 different varieties of wine in a can and 2 different varieties in a bottle. And I'm sure we're going to have many more varieties to come in the near future. And continuing on with broadening that portfolio, at the end of 2020, we decided to launch a line of hard kombucha. It's under the name All Kind. It's brewed in Fort Collins. It's an Odell product. It has a different name. It's 100% certified, gluten-free, and organic. It's delicious. We currently offer 2 different flavors in a can, and we're going to have a 3rd flavor to be released soon this spring. So Katie has now moved on to be our brand manager for our All Kind hard kombucha. And like I said earlier, Travis, He is our head winemaker. So I'm going to pass this over to Travis. He's going to walk us through the wines that we're going to be tasting today, and he's going to answer any questions that you all may have. So I appreciate you joining us today. And like I said, if you ever see
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's great to, hi there. So it's great to see everybody here. Thank you for the introduction, Miguel. As Miguel said, my name is Travis Green. I'm the winemaker here at the OBC Wine Project. And I'm joining you from the actual winery. So forgive the lighting and any slow internet issues. We're actually under construction right now. We're going to be opening a tap room in April and May, hopefully. And so we're kind of under construction right now. There's a ton of drywall and tape and cords everywhere, but we're making do. So I really wanted to get to speak to you guys a little bit today about some of the differences between our canned program and our bottled program. I do have a screen PowerPoint, but feel free to ignore that. It's 6 o'clock. We should be having a good time. This is a conversation, not a lecture. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see here. Share, and then we'll present this. So we're going to talk a little bit about bottles and cans. As you know, when we launched the OBC Wine Project, our focus was really about cans. You know, Odell has been putting beverages in cans for close to 20 years now. So there was really this kind of innate interest in putting quality wine in cans, and I think that's one of the things that sets us apart. Rather than cans being an afterthought, they're really the core of our business, and that really opens us up to some cool experimentations around the edges of that. That's what gave rise to our bottled program, where we could actually highlight some specific vineyards and some specific flavors that we couldn't really express in the cans. And we'll get into some of the reasons behind that here in a second. So I'm going to give my quick elevator pitch about wine in cans and why it's special, and kind of compare that to some of the wines that we have in bottles. So for cans, one of the things that we're really excited about is that cans really offer you a snapshot of the wine. What I taste out of the tank is what you taste out of the can. There's really not a lot of evolution of the wine in the cans, which is a good thing. We're trying to preserve that freshness of that fresh fruit, that acidity, that really nice crisp flavor that you get when you pop a can of the Odell wines. One of the really cool things about cans is that they're super sustainable. Over 75% of the aluminum is recycled, and that aluminum can continue to be recycled over time. They're lower weight. It means that they cost less to ship. There's less of a carbon debt for that. The cans are actually made in Colorado, down in Golden from Ball, and there's also no cork and no capsule. So there's not anything getting in the way between you and the wine. You know, if you're ever in that occasion where glass bottles aren't allowed, the cans are a great alternative there. And one thing that I think that we don't talk about enough is that the wine in cans are actually super low intervention wines. Part of that is our philosophy. We want to be low intervention winemakers here. The other part is kind of some chemicals constraints around that. The cans are a little bit more sensitive to bottles, so we don't have the opportunity to or the necessity to add any preservatives to the wines. We can actually go into cans with really low levels of sulfite. So if that's one of the things you're concerned about with wines, canned wines actually might have a little bit of a lower levels of sulfites than our bottled program. Now, there is some differences between the canned wines and the bottles. With the canned wines, again, we're really thinking to drink in the present, in the moment. As I said, we're super nimble. Right behind me, you can see our can line. That's a huge footprint in our winery. And why we've devoted so much time and energy to the can line is that it frees us up to have really small and agile runs. That means our shelf life, or the cans you find on the shelves are much fresher than normal. We're not bottling or canning once a year. We're more canning once a month or so. So you can always know that the wines out on the market are fresher. So we like that. The wines I think that are in the cans really drink nice and fresh. The bottles, on the other hand, are a little bit different. Whereas the wine in cans is kind of a snapshot of where the wines are at this period of time, and they're not really going to evolve. Bottling is kind of one step in the evolution of the wines. Once they go into the bottle, they're not finished evolving. They're not finished growing. They'll continue to evolve and change over a longer period of time. For the two wines we're tasting today, they're drinking really well right now. They're 2019 wines, but really 2021 to 2024 is kind of the window we're looking at. So we're hoping these wines continue to change a little bit of over time. The other difference in the bottled wine from the canned wine is that we do have to take a few more steps to prepare the wine for packaging. There's a few steps that we have the option to take, and sometimes we can take them and sometimes we can't, or we don't. Heat stability is one. If you ever see a wine that's a little bit cloudy in the bottle after you leave it in your hot car, I hope none of you do that. But if you do, you might see that that white wine turns a little bit cloudy. That's protein instability, and that's one of the things we can control for when the wine is going into the bottle. It's usually through a process of fining. That's adding some product to the wine that has a electrical charge that pulls those proteins out of the wine so that the wines don't cloud up when they're heated. The other part is the opposite of that. If you throw a wine in your cooler or your freezer, take it out the next day, you might see some crystals or sugary looking substance at the bottom of those wines. That's cold stability, and those crystals are tartrates. Generally in the winery, what you can do is chill a wine down to around 34 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will drop the crystals out in the tank. But those crystals are also contain a little bit of acidity, and we all really like that bright acidity in our wines. So we choose generally to be pretty conservative with our stabilizations. We don't filter, we don't fine. And I only cold stabilize down to around 40 degrees. That way we can kind of keep a little bit of that acidity in the wine. So talking about wines that take a little bit longer to evolve, that age in the bottle, there's a few factors that can go into that. Acid is one. Wines with a lower pH and high acidity tend to evolve a little bit better in the bottle. That acidity kind of acts as a natural preservative. Another factor would be tannins. Tannins help to preserve wine over a long period of time. If you think of those older Bordeaux's and those vintages from 1945 or so that are still drinking really cool, that's because those wines are so tannic early on. Barolo is a great example of this as well. That can take a decade or more to really come into their own before they're ready to drink. We're obviously not going that far, but we do want to give the wine a little bit of time in the bottle just to evolve and show itself a little bit more. Another thing that we can think about to help aging is alcohol and or sugar. This is mostly the case with dessert wines. Alcohol in port can help preserve the wine for a longer period of time, just like sugar in Sauterne or Beer and Auslese from Riesling can also age gracefully over decades. So with all that out of the way, let's actually taste some wine. The first two wines we're going to taste are going to be our white wines. We've got a Pinot Gris white blend. This is coming from Willamette Valley with a little bit of help from Columbia Valley up in Washington as well. 76% Pinot Gris. That's coming from Gauchy Farms, which is also the supplier for our Strata hops in our Mountain Standard IPA. They grow hops and grapes right next door to each other. So the base is this Pinot Gris, bright, fresh, citrus, a little bit of mineral there. So we added a little bit to that. We've got some Sauvignon Blanc there to add a little bit more fruit. We've got some Chardonnay to help round the palate out and make it a little bit wider. And then we've got just a touch, 2% of Riesling, really makes the aromatics pop a little bit more. To kind of contrast with that, we also have our Chardonnay from Willamette Valley. This is from a little bit further south in Willamette than the Pinot Gris. This is from the Van Duzer corridor, And when we taste this, you'll notice that the fruit character is a little bit different. So why don't we start with the Pinot Gris? It's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to pour a little bit for myself as well. So what you'll taste, give this a nice smell. You get a ton of this kind of stone fruit character. You get some apple, but for me, most of the fruit in here drinks fairly ripe. You know, I'm thinking ripe green apples. I'm thinking melons that are ripening up in the summer. You get a little bit of minerality, but I think this wine is more driven by this really ripe fruit. The acid on this is higher, is on the higher end of the spectrum. We've got 3.1 pH, so pretty low there. And TA, which is titratable acidity or total acidity, that's the acidity that you can actually perceive really strongly, as opposed to malic acid. So it's at 6.3 grams per liter. So also a little bit high, but nice on the medium plus range there. So this is a nice fresh wine. And one of the things I really like about this is that it drinks well right now. The fruit and the acid are in balance. The fruit is tasting ripe. It's right on the foreground. The aroma is singing. I like this wine as a drinker right now. Next up, though, let's taste a little bit of this Chardonnay. So the Chardonnay is a little bit different. If you look at the map, we're sourcing most of our the Pinot Gris for that blend from right around Salem and Silverton in the Willamette Valley. That's a nice little cove. It's in between the higher elevation Chehalem Mountains and the Eola Amity Hills on the western side. Right beyond the Eola Amity Hills is the Van Duzer corridor, and what makes that area special is you can almost see it right here. This little cove that allows wind from the Pacific Ocean to flow west to east. Those high winds, they bring in cooler temperatures, they moderate the nighttime temperatures, leads to higher acidity in the wines, but also these grapes are being buffeted by this wind constantly, and it's kind of like building a callus on these grapes. So the thin skins are a little bit thicker, and they're a little bit more concentrated, I guess. That's more of a big deal for Pinot Noir, since it does spend a little bit more time on the skins, but I think it really shows the Chardonnay in a nice light as well. So this is our 2019 Chardonnay, and this comes from, as I said, Van Duzer corridor in the Willamette Valley. And I want to kind of compare and contrast this with the Pinot Gris we just tasted. I think smelling this, we still get that apple and pear character, but to me this is almost an octave higher. If we were to think about this in musical terms, the fruit isn't quite so ripe. It's a little bit more green. Everything seems a little bit more tart. The tone is higher. We get these nice aromas of green and golden apple, some pear. There's a little bit of spiciness in there too. I think that comes from the barrel character. But what I really love about this is the mouthfeel and the structure. We can think about wine structure in a few different ways. You know, you can have a red wine that is structured through through the interaction between the tannins and the acidity. But for white wines, acid is really driving the show. And in this case, even though the pH is actually higher than the Pinot Gris we just tasted, I feel like the acidity is a little bit more present here. I really feel it down the sides of my palate. Still very nicely balanced. I think one of the decisions we made to put this wine into bottles rather than cans is that acidity. There's a nice minerality to this. It's almost like wet concrete or river rocks or something like that. You can almost taste the steel or mineral in this wine, and that's a flavor that's going to hang on over time. And as the wine ages, those fruit characters kind of tend to evolve into a little bit rounder, a little bit deeper flavors, and this minerality kind of jumps to the foreground. That's the secondary and tertiary aromas and flavors that you get in wines as they age. And that's one of the beautiful things about this wine, is that it will continue to change over time. This was a fun wine to work on. It was crushed, goes into stainless steel tanks where it begins fermentation, then rack it down into neutral oak barrels where it finishes. However, even though it's fermented in oak and aged in neutral oak, it doesn't show a lot of that oak character. A lot of that is due to the chemical makeup of this wine. It's got a little bit of a higher acidity. It can absorb more of that oak without showing as much. And also the winemaking process. While it sat on the lees, it wasn't stirred. We didn't do any batonnage on this wine. So while it does have some lees character, it's got a little hint of that like buttered brioche in the aroma. It's not overly buttery or overly oaky. And I think that balance is going to lend itself well to aging. At least I hope. So again, going back to our map here, the Pinot Gris coming from Gauchy Farms and Six Peaks in the north near Salem and McMinnville, and then the Chardonnay coming from Van Duzer, a little bit closer to the coast, so you can taste that saline, taste that minerality that comes in on those ocean breezes. So, any questions about the two whites? I think there's some big contrasts here between the really ripe fruit on the can and the more subdued fruit and higher minerality and acidity on the Chardonnay. So if everyone's palate is kind of nice and cleansed and prepped, we can move on to the next two wines, which are our reds. So again, you know, I want to say our spiritual home is in Willamette. That's where a lot of our hops come from. That's where we know a lot of growers. It's where we're most comfortable. So this is another wine that comes right from that area where where our Pinot Gris was sourced. So right around that Salem, Silverton, Chehalem Mountains area. This is a 2019 Pinot Noir, and this one is really special just because of some of the complexity that we can taste in here. We're going to go to the can next, just because it's a little bit of a thicker wine, a bigger wine. So the first thing you'll see on the Pinot Noir right off the bat is the color. It looks a little bit lighter. It's almost this. You can see through the glass. It's not a deep color at all. But when you smell it, there's so much there. There's cedar and forest floor. There's a little bit of cherry. There's spice. Everything seems really fresh and bright. There's tannins on this wine, but they're very fine tannins. They let you know they're there and they contribute to the finish, but they're not distracting. This was a Pinot Noir that came from two different vineyards. They were actually right across the street from Gauchy Farms, where we sourced our Pinot Gris. This wine had 10 to 12 days of skin contact. So the grapes are brought in, they're destemmed. We didn't do any whole clusters on this particular wine. So they're destemmed. They go into open top bins. And we ferment these old school, which means somebody climbs up on top of these bins and punches them down 3 times a day. During the fermentation process, as the yeast convert sugar to alcohol, they also give off CO2. And what that does is take all of the grape skins that are in this that come from the fruit, pushes all of the skins up to the very top of the tank and all of the liquid below. So in order to get that color and that flavor into this wine, somebody has to mix those tanks up. And we do it by hand with the big stainless steel rod that we push down. It breaks the cap, and there's this, and every time you break through the cap, it's my favorite part of harvest, you get this intense aroma kind of blowing up off of the fermenters, a ton of CO2 with it. You know that fermentation is healthy, and you can kind of see how the wine is evolving from there. So this wine was after fermentation went down into barrels dirty. That means we didn't spend any time letting the wine settle before it went into barrels. I wanted to carry all of those fermentation flavors along with us into the barrels. We gave it 10 months in, again, neutral French oak, and then bottled straight from, racked it once into a tank and bottled from there. Again, no filtration, no fining on this wine. I really love the structure. The acidity is nice. I think it's a refreshing wine. We have a ton of fruit flavors, a little bit of cedar and spice from barrel. Even though they were neutral barrels, I still feel like it picked up some flavor from those. And the wine just is showing really well. However, this is a 2019. It's 2021 right now. Still getting a lot of fruit off of this wine, and over time, if you give it a couple of more years, that fruit and that acid kind of, again, takes a step back. The acid integrates a little bit, and instead of this bright cherry and pomegranate flavor, you start to get those secondary flavors of mushrooms and forest floor and spice that really come through in the wine. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to put this wine in the bottle. One, the vineyard and the site itself is special to us, and we wanted to showcase that. Two, we believe this wine has some additional ability to age over time. For me, this is one of my favorites. I think it's super food friendly. I love it this time of year. It kind of it reminds me, even though it's a lighter bodied wine, it feels warm, and I like that. So to kind of, for something completely different, let's contrast that with our red blend. This is a big guy, whereas the Pinot Noir is agile and lithe and really shows a lot of subtlety. I think our canned red is a little bit more in your face. So this is a kind of a kitchen sink blend: Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sangiovese, another Cabernet Sauvignon from a little bit of a warmer area, and then just a touch of Nebbiolo to contribute some tannins. While our other three wines have come from Willamette Valley, which is a cooler growing region, you know, they get the the mediating cool from the Pacific Ocean, as well as some fog throughout the year. These wines come from Wahluke Slope and Columbia Valley in Washington. When you think about Washington, a lot of the times you think about Seattle, where it's always cool and rainy. But if you go just over the Cascades, those mountains kind of block all of the Cascades and the Olympic Range kind of block all of that cool weather from making it over the mountains. And instead you have kind of an inland desert. It actually gets more sun than some parts of California. And what that means is we can let these grapes hang for a long time. They'll continue to build sugar, build flavor over that time. But what happens as they ripen, as the sugars go up and the fruit concentration increases, those acids decrease. It's almost a scale where as the sugars rise, the acid falls. The trick for winemakers is to pick at that point where the acid and the sugar are in balance, so you can have a wine that's nicely balanced at the end. We built this to be a fruit-forward red, and I think we're right there. If you taste this, we get a ton of again, more ripe fruit than we got off of the Pinot Noir. Whereas the Pinot Noir, we were tasting kind of cranberries and early season raspberries. Here, I'm thinking blackberry jam, some ripe plum, more black fruits. It also feels like these fruits are, like I said, riper. They're at the end of the season, even stewed down a little bit, cooked fruit. I really like the balance of this wine. We get some, it's definitely a full body. You know, we're pushing 14.5% alcohol. So it's a larger wine for sure, but it's ready to drink now. It's the fruit that's in this wine is at the point where we should be enjoying it. It's not going to evolve a lot more in the, if we were to bottle this, it would be fine out of the bottle, but it probably wouldn't evolve a lot more over time. The fruit character is really what carries this wine. There's a little bit of tannin there, but it's a balanced tannin. You know, the special thing about this to me is that fruit character. And over the years, I feel like that's going to kind of take a backseat to some of the other aromas that are present in this wine. So for this one, I like enjoying it right now. Again, it can still be very food friendly. I'm thinking stews and braises, especially this time of year. And as you can see, the tannins are much more focused at the front of your palate. You get them right on the front of your teeth, right on the sides of your tongue. Whereas with the Pinot Noir, feels like those are a little bit further back. They're going to hang on a little bit longer. These tannins are still are pretty fresh. So with that said, those are some of the wines we have right now. We've got a lot more coming up over the next year, including with our bottled program. I'm happy to be releasing our first Colorado Chardonnay coming up next year. That's aging in barrels right now. We're really proud of some of the local growers that we've been working with. We're going to also be releasing some special edition wines. These are wines that are going to be limited release. We're going to do them in cans actually, and these are going to be more collaborations with the brewery, kind of pushing the envelope of what we're really trying to do with wine. These are wines that might be aged in beer barrels. They're wines that are skin contact white. Natural wines, wines that are fermented with native yeast and don't see any intervention from that point on. We've got some cool stuff coming up, and we have a special surprise when we open the tap room with a sparkling wine, also from Willamette, that we'll be releasing at that time. Super pumped about that. You know, we're going to continue to grow here. I think the tap room opening up in May is going to give us a lot of opportunity to share some of our experimental wines on the line. But we've got some exciting times ahead. So with that, I wanted to kind of open up to some questions and have a little bit more of a conversation with these wines. Hopefully, I've given you something to think about, and you've got your palates nice and ready to go, and your tongue a little bit loosened up as well, so we can speak through these.
Travis, awesome, thank you. There's a couple questions in here that I can relay to you. Coming back to the whites, Chad had asked, why is the Pinot a blend? Oh, the Pinot, like the can, a blend of grapes for the Chardonnay, just a single. Yes, if there's like a legal reason or.
Not necessarily a legal reason. So technically, since this Pinot Gris blend is 76% Pinot Gris, we could just label it as Pinot Gris. You only need 75% of a varietal to call it that varietal, but that seems cheating a little bit to me. So we wanted to throw that blend in there as well. You know, if this wine were closer to 90-95% Pinot Gris, I would be okay with that. But I really want to kind of signal to people that they should expect something a little bit different than a standard Pinot Gris. On top of that, blending, I think, really helped this wine. One of the things that we really like in cans is how it preserves the aromatics of a wine. The Pinot Gris that we like from this area, one of the things that sets it apart is this really nice kind of grapefruit acidity. And that's great. It tastes awesome out of the cans, and we're so proud of it that the can design for this white blend is actually a microscope slide of a grapefruit. So we really love that flavor, but it's so acidic and so tart that it needed a little bit of that Chardonnay, a little bit of that Sauvignon Blanc from a warmer area up in Washington, to kind of smooth everything out and round it out a little bit more. Again, we can discuss this in terms of bottles versus cans. If we were to bottle this wine, that Pinot Gris on its own would be a fantastic candidate for the bottle. And keep your eyes open, because we are actually going to be releasing a blend from Gauchy Vineyards in the spring. That's going to be Pinot Gris, Viognier, and Riesling. So that'll be coming up in March or April. But for this particular wine, I really liked what the Chardonnay did to kind of tame that acid a little bit. I like the Sauvignon Blanc to give it a little bit more stone fruit character, and then that Riesling, you know, it adds that floral note that you get from that. So that was all about the aromatics.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely, for sure. I'm excited for the next bottle. I love this Pinot Gris. I think it's one of the best things that we have, which is pretty incredible. So,
Yeah,
and
the
go ahead.
2020 is going to be a really interesting wine as well. 2020 was a tough vintage all up and down the West Coast. You know, we had tons of forest fires, not only in Colorado but also in Willamette. So I'm really proud of what we did with the growers out there to make a solid wine in a rough year.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question. The last time that we did this, we had kind of dove in a little bit more on the can design, and like you just touched on just a moment ago, but can you talk to the bottle label design and where that came from?
Yep. So the Chardonnay, what we were really interested in with this was kind of focusing on that minerality, and what we came around to was that minerality kind of reminded us of seashells a little bit. So the label on the Chardonnay actually shows diatoms, which are tiny sea organisms that leave behind their shells over time, and that kind of inspired the label for the Chardonnay. It also reminds me of river rocks a little bit, and I get that in the wine too. Again, really just highlighting the minerality of that wine. On the Pinot Gris, on this one we were looking at the underside of a leaf. One of the pieces that jumped out to me on this wine was kind of almost like a forest floor character, dried leaves, like you were walking through the forest in autumn, and we really wanted to highlight that one. So all of these, I wish I were that creative, but that's all of our marketing team. So so kudos to those guys. they have the hard job. And just to carry on from that a little bit, the Pinot Noir is one, like I said, it comes from an area that we're becoming quickly familiar with. So we've got some cool ideas for that one as well. We're going to actually bring that to Fort Collins this year so that we can experiment with it a little bit more. One of the big initiatives that we're doing right now, in addition to the tap room here, is building out a custom crush pad so that we'll be able to. We're on track to crush about 200 tons of grapes in Fort Collins at our facility here this fall. So if y'all are around, stop by and get your feet dirty.
Lucille Ball style, let's do it.
Oh yeah.
No, that's going to be the most exciting piece, because like that just gives us all of our hands into everything, right? Like
exactly, and it gives us the opportunity to be a lot more creative with the wines. We'll be here. We can really push what we can do. It's going to be some exciting times, and on top of that, we're going to continue to work with Colorado fruit as well. There's a very dynamic viticulture industry in Colorado out on the western slope. We've got 4 wines that we're going to be releasing from Colorado this year, including a carbonic red, so kind of made in the style of a Beaujolais wine. Really excited to see that in the spring as well, and I'm sure we'll have another one of these tastings where we can get really geeky about carbonic maceration and barrel aging. Yay!
Yeah. Cool. Well, Travis, thank you. I'm gonna jump in and make our cocktail really fast, and then as you guys are hanging, please put some more questions in. I mean, he's amazing, and if anyone's been on here before, like he's just a wealth of knowledge, and if you haven't, there's still so much that he can answer to. So think about some stuff as we make this, and Miguel's going to keep an eye on stuff and be able to jump in. But if we feel okay about it, I'll dive into the cocktail. Yeah, does that sound good? Let me get some ice.
Travis, if you wouldn't mind, stop sharing your screens, and then I'll spotlight Katie.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So I guess the inspiration for this one that I found is actually from a local restaurant of mine that did something kind of different. And I'm a huge fan of making cocktails with anything of different varieties of base of alcohol. So like we did with our beer one earlier this summer. I mean, we did some great ones with Sippin' Pretty. I've been making some of the kombucha and then like the wine, and there's just a lot of fun stuff. And so I think Chad, you said something about like doing like a mulled wine, and there's some really cool things we can do. So I was just kind of thinking a little bit outside the box. This is kind of fun and definitely taste to your preference. I'm not a super sweet palate person. I like to have things a little bit more, I like to have the sweetness on the backside. So I don't add a ton of simple syrup or different sugars or anything like that. So before, like as we mix this, taste it, and before you add in your wine to see where it's at, but also remember that wine is going to kind of dry it out a little bit. So if you want something to have a little bit more of a backbone, please add in a little bit more of that simple syrup. So just kind of wanted to give you that heads up on that one. So I'm no Chris Motley, so I'm going to try to do this the best we can. But we'll start with our shaker, and then you can take your bourbon. We'll add that on in. We'll do some of our simple syrup. I think I did this backwards. That's okay. They all go in the same place. I'm using just a little thing of lemon. My roommate used all my lemons, so I don't have any, but if you can use fresh, go fresh. But if not, always keep this in your fridge because you can't go wrong. And I said ½ ounce, but you know, it's going to be a couple wedges if you're just going to use a fresh lemon on that one, just to give it a little bit of acidity to it. And then molasses, and if you ever have any flavored molasses, absolutely put that in here because that's going to be really fun. I've seen people do like pomegranate or anything like that, which is kind of cool. So, and you don't need a lot because molasses is a big flavor and it's thick too. So you want to make sure that you're kind of getting it shaken up and kind of getting it out there. And most of it's going to stick to your spoon anyway. So Miguel, earlier you said that I look like I'm in a cooking show. Now I'm in a cooking show.
That's exactly, yeah. You're doing a fantastic job. I would subscribe to your channel any day.
Hey, thanks. This is what we're going to do. So anyone who doesn't know Chris Motley was the specialist, the spirit specialist at Davidson's, and he was just phenomenal and came on to do a guest cocktail show recently, which is pretty cool. So, so mix all of your things in your shaker. And we're going to give it, I'm even using my Odell glass, give it a nice good shake. If you don't have a shaker, just give it a good stir too, and just try to get everything moving. It's going to have a nice color to it, especially with that molasses coming in there. And if it feels a little imbalanced, just, change it to your liking. That's the best thing about a good cocktail, right? And I'm actually going to add a little bit more bourbon in mine because mine was a little short. I don't think that's a bad thing. And then we're going to, from there, just add some of our wine right on to the top and give it a little bit of float. So like I said, that wine is going to kind of cut some of that sweetness, cut some of the molasses from it, and really kind of make a fun, different type of cocktail. So I hope you guys enjoy it. If not, there's booze in your booze, and so we should be okay, right? Happy Thursday.
Perfect. Shout out to Chad. Looks like he's working hard to keep up with you. He's doing a fantastic job too.
Oh.
And Sarah, I wanted to answer your question about the Heart Kombucha. So you can find it at Davidson's. You can also find our Heart Kombucha at a lot of other liquor stores and grocery stores. Well, soon to be grocery stores, but mainly liquor stores right now. But support Davidson. They're great. They're a great company with great people. And look for the brand All Kind. We have 2 different varieties. We have a tropical turmeric right now and a super berry, and we're going to have a 3rd flavor available this spring. So yeah, All Kind by Odell. Go to Davidson's. Yeah, support them. Good people.
Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty good. It's nice. You can cut down a little bit of the molasses if you want to, but this is nice. It kind of like brings a really nice backbone and really holds the bourbon and it holds the wine on this. So it looks there's a lot to it, but it's good, especially on a winter night. Hope everyone got some snow because this is kind of perfect for sure. And do you guys have any other questions for Travis or for us at Odell? These things?
Hey, Chad, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you wouldn't mind unmuting and telling us how your cocktail turned out, I think that'd be great.
I would love to hear it, totally. Because sorry if I went quick.
Oh, that's all right. No, actually, it turned out really good. It's interesting having the adding the molasses to the standard New York sour, but it definitely adds a more of a almost a rum note because of the molasses from the molasses.
Yeah, it kind of does, right? And like I said, it kind of gives it kind of like lifts up a little bit of that bourbon in the wine, and it gives it a different face. So it is definitely a play off of a New York sour, and kind of fun because yeah.
I know it's really good. I wouldn't mind trying it again with a little egg white to see.
Oh, there you go. I like it. Absolutely. Anytime you can add in some egg white, that's always fun.
I will say that the canned red is really nice for a calimocho as well. It's an easy one to throw together with a little bit of cola and lemon.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, because that's just cola and red wine and lemon, correct?
Over ice.
Over ice, yeah. Which I have never tried.
Right?
I think a part of me is like, I don't want to. Wait, what? But I'll put other things in my wine, so why wouldn't I?
And I love the ripe fruit and vanilla notes of the canned red that I'm seriously thinking of getting a couple cans and making up some mulled wine with it because I think it will really stand up nice to all the other spices.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
Orange, clove, star anise, and don't forget the brandy in there as well. It's it kind of pushes it over the top.
Little lairds, add a little bit of apple.
Yeah. Absolutely. Chad, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think we should bring back Montley and do a very specific, we'll send him some wine and some kombucha and some beer, and we'll have him do cocktails for all of our stuff because he's pretty phenomenal. He can help guide us through all of this stuff. So
I agree.
I should have told him to be on here tonight just for that reason. Yeah. Well, if anybody has any other thoughts or any questions, please feel free to like unmute and jump in. But thank you guys so much. And it's been so exciting to start this project and to really get this out. And everybody at Davidson's and including you guys have been just such great supporters and like willingness to try and trust us on the beer side to come up with some cool wine. But that's why we have Travis to do it and to really keep building this forward. So I'm excited. Like I love all of it, and it's really cool to see where we're going to keep going with it. So we're going to do plenty more of these. I have a feeling.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. If you do have questions after the fact, you can always email them to me and I can get them to Katie and everybody else. If not, thank you again so much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Miguel. You guys were all awesome. And we appreciate everybody being here with us tonight. And thanks again to Davidson's. Make sure if you didn't pick up your wines to head to there for this weekend and use that coupon so you can try them. And you can even watch this back too and kind of compare at that time too. So with that, I'll say good night to everybody. Have a great rest of your Thursday and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Danielle. Everybody have a great night.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Danielle and Davidson's. Appreciate it.